As every year passes, a new Call of Duty releases. It's a system that we've all gotten used to by now. There's a cycle to Call of Duty's releases, but what about when that cycle gets broken? Black Ops 6 has had the longest development out of any Call of Duty game ever made, but honestly I didn't really care about it before release. And the only reason I ended up picking up in the first place is so that I could check out zombies.
Why is he charging at me?
Was that C4?
C4!
The last campaign I remember being genuinely good in the series was Cold War, and that came out, oh my god, that was 4 years ago. Regardless, I still did play the campaign for Black Ops 6, but would you believe my shock when the game was actually good? Now I am not saying by any means that this is the best Call of Duty ever made, as I do have some complaints about the game, but the stuff that I thought was good really impressed me for the most part. The absolutely stunning cutscenes from previous games have returned, and the opening level gives us a pretty good first impression. The graphics in the game are alright. Some areas definitely look better than others.
It was perfect. Perfect.
And something I've noticed recently in Call of Duty is the marginal difference in graphics between games. I mean, this game doesn't look too much different from Cold War. One of the biggest things this game was marketed off of though was their new mechanic, Omni Movement, which basically allows you to sprint in all directions. Some people online have said it makes a pretty minimal difference to the game, but honestly I think the way that it's unnoticeable works in its favour. It's so smooth that if it was taken away then it would feel like there's something missing. But the best thing that this mechanic has given to the game is the ability to dive into any direction.
He wasn't aiming for me, Service! Get down, Mr. President! No!
I think zombies is really where this mechanic shows off its strength. I'm not going to go too into depth with this. I'm going to make a video on zombies at some point in the future where I'm going to talk about this a little bit more.
I'll get it. Oh no, I'm not getting him!
Go, run, go.
After your run-of-the-mill helicopter escape section, we end up in this safe house called the Rook. It's kinda like an expanded version of the safe house that we saw in Cold War, and one of the best things added by this is the ability to upgrade your character, which to my knowledge, this is the first time something like this has ever shown up in a Call of Duty game. Throughout the campaign, you can find cash lying around in the missions, and when you get back to your base, you can upgrade parts of it so that you can upgrade the character. Overall, these don't really make that much of a difference to the game, but it adds a tiny bit more of depth that Call of Duty really is needed. In the second level, we get the first taste of this game's more open-ended design. This is something I actually really like in this game. Given my taste in 90s and early 2000s shooters, this feels perfect to me. What if I just... And this is the first time since World at War that I've really felt like exploring the environments. Many of the missions have multiple ways of going about the task at hand. One player might bribe the friend of a senator so they can get close and get a picture of his eye, whilst another might fight through his security in the kitchen and beat him up to get that picture.
Oh my god, where'd you...
And there's one mission later on in the game that really shows off the open-ended design of this game perfectly, and it's something I'm just gonna call that level. But that's for later in the video. When you aren't sneaking around and going about your business quietly, the combat feels really smooth. Every gun has this punchy feel to it. And some of the new additions to the game's sandbox really make for a different experience. And honestly, one of the best combat loops I've played in a good while. For starters, the equipment is great. The game now has this option called the equipment wheel, which lets you cycle between what you want to use at any given moment. Some of my personal favourites would include the homing knife, which locks onto enemies and once thrown you can guide it towards them. And then there's also the stim, which might be one of the coolest pieces of equipment I've seen in any first person shooter. It regenerates you back to full health and slows down time temporarily. Now, all these fancy gadgets seem pretty powerful, so this must mean the game's just easy, right? Not really. Black Ops 6 is certainly not one of the hardest FPS games out there. It's not even the hardest in the series. Like, come on, it's Call of Duty. We still need to appeal to the mindless children who play it. But the game does pack in a lot of interesting challenges in terms of its enemies. It isn't very often that we get to explore different enemy selection in Call of Duty, but here I think it's done really well. We still have our returning classics like Ordinary Dude, armoured soldiers, and the Juggernaut.
Take cover.
But to supplement that, we have changes to old enemies and a bunch of new enemies. For starters, the Juggernaut is incredibly beefy this time.
Okay, ban the guy that just said weight maxing. Ban that dude, he just said weight max.
With seemingly a lot more damage being dealt with every shot. On the side of new enemies though, we have some quite interesting ones. One of the first new enemies we meet is this guy who lays down these electric traps. When you or your teammates trigger these traps, it will electrocute you and stick you in place. And I personally found that he oftentimes tries to run away from you, which made for some pretty fun chases in between dodging the normal enemies. Speaking of chasing down enemies, we have the RCXD guys. He continuously runs away from you to cover and rolls RCXDs towards you. I love this enemy because he's pretty dangerous and it creates a sense of urgency around killing him, like Doom's Archvile or the Gold Elites in Halo. But unlike these two, there's some enemies that would just prefer to chase you down instead. The gas throwy guys fill the room with toxic gases. This will slow you down and damage you over time, which is all good and well until you realise that when you get caught in the gas, he runs at you with a fire axe and hits you in the face with it. The shotgunners are easily up there with the Juggernaut in terms of the most dangerous enemies. They constantly stalk you down, they never let up, and they have a Dragon's Breath shotgun, along with a boatload of health for an enemy of his stature, although he doesn't show up very often, which is a complaint I have about all of the new enemies. I love their inclusion, but I think there's so much more they could have done with them in different rooms. Imagine having a tight corridor with a shotgunner assisted by two gas guys. That would be a brilliantly challenging encounter. It's only once or twice we really get this type of creative encounters made with the enemies, and I think that's a real shame. Now I'm getting into spoiler territory here, but it's something I've been buzzing to talk about since I played it. You guessed it, we're at that level. Now around the midpoint of the campaign, we find out that Saddam Hussein's in possession of a biological weapon. So once we take it, we go to the manufacturing facility of this mysterious weapon. We end up having a small fall.
Hang on,
But this is about the point where the game decides to get a little spooky. We go to pick up this axe so that we can wedge open the door, and oh! Oh my god. Was that a zombie? Nah, no way, no way. This is too scary, I ain't playing this no more. Yep, this level is basically an introduction to zombies. This game so far has been more open than any other COD game I've played, but in this level we go back to the basics of FPS, a keycard hunt. Each keycard is protected by its own boss encounter. One has you facing off the returning Mangler from Black Ops 3's zombies. Another has you fighting the also returning Abomination from Cold War zombies. This fight with the Mimic from Prey, rest in peace, had me literally saying out loud, oh my god, because I heard 115 starting as soon as the fight started. Yes! Oh my god. And finally, for the last keycard, we get one of the most interesting encounters I have ever seen in Call of Duty. We have to find the director's missing files, and then in turn, he will give us the keycard. So, we do that, but the catch is, every time we pick up a new file, more and more mannequins spawn in.
We found the first report.
But these are no ordinary mannequins. They'll follow you about whenever you're not looking at them. There's no way I'm actually getting scared by a COD campaign right now. The difficult part about this is that the file is on a wall where you have your back turned to the entire room. Once you eventually do get all the files in, he will betray you and start trying to run away. With the only way of catching him being the grappling hook. Oh, by the way, did I mention this game has a grappling hook? Yeah, it's only for this mission and one near the end of the campaign, but man is it fun. A grappling hook makes every single FPS game 10 times better. You can even pull enemies towards you and execute them like you're playing Doom. And by the way, this level's presentation is brilliant. It looks beautiful and really shows off how good some of the music in this game is. Honestly, whoever made the music for this game is a national treasure, because it absolutely slaps. I'm not going to say too much on the ending of the game, I think it's something you should experience for yourself. But let me tell you, it's nowhere near as bad as some people online have tried to claim. I think the game keeps a pretty consistent feel throughout it. Now, if you're new around here, then I highly recommend hitting the subscribe button, and if you'd like to see me cover Call of Duty more in the future, then like the video so I can find out. Along with that, you can also check out my channel memberships. It's a great way to give a little bit of extra support to the channel and the production of these videos. Remember to use code Beansprout for 20% off on any purchase at Abra clothing, and check out Jason Art on Instagram. He made all of the new art you can see around the channel now. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.